Okay. And I will also try to see if I can put the AI summary for the first hour. Last time it actually kind of failed because we were using too much Swahili and Zoom AI doesn't understand. So we'll see how this thing goes. Again, welcome everyone to our session today. College applications 201/301 talk. This is a continuation of a session that we had in December, which was College Applications 101. Very well received, but we did realize that there's still some applicants who are applying for admission this year. And so that's why we're doing 201 and 301 as a crash course for those who are actually hoping to start college this year, meaning like in 2025. And then it will also be a head start for those who are applying to enter college in 2026. So that's why it's a 201/301. My name is Frank Minja. I'm a radiologist based in Atlanta, Georgia. And it's my distinct pleasure to introduce Engineer Asanterabi Malima, who's helping us to coordinate these sessions. He has a wonderful panelist of Gen Z. Gen Z, that's basically anybody age 15 through 21, I think kind of like fits into that age group. So that's the kind of like age group that we're targeting. And again, we're targeting students, their parents, whether you're in diaspora, whether you're in Tanzania. The first hour is going to be pretty much pure English. And then in the second hour, we can have a mix of English and Kiswahili. And please feel free to add any information in the chat. We'll also be answering questions via the chat. Without further ado, over to you, Asante. Much appreciated.
Thank you for that awesome introduction, Professor Minja. Again, my name is Asante Malima. For my background, I'm an electrical engineer and computer engineer by training, but I work as a systems engineer. What I mean by that, I work in the area where we develop medical devices. From diagnostics, monitoring, or devices that help with the detecting infectious diseases and things like of that nature. I live in the Portland, Westbrook area on the eastern side of the United States. And I do a lot of startup mentorship in the greater Portland area. So I mentor a few companies in the area over here. And I hopefully also have a lot of interest in the healthcare and education tech. So some of those things, when I come to Tanzania, I do that as well. So yeah, looking forward to this session. As Professor Min just said earlier, we did the 101 session when I was in Dar, and it was so well received. But then we realized that a lot of students that were thinking of applying this year. And so we decided, okay, let's put 201 and 301 together and try to get as much as information that we can share, so that for the people who are still thinking of applying this year, they can do that. But for the most part, we'll be targeting youngsters, people who are thinking of applying for next year and the year after. And I'll talk about the rationale for that. So as for, let me see, jump into my next slide. As for why we're doing this, I think we mentioned in the previous session, we really want to formalize this mentorship process. We want people to identify mentors that they want to talk to, so that they can understand what is needed. And for the most part, Professor Minja and I and the people that will be doing the graduate session, we're really hoping that we'll do this for a year, maybe, or 2 years, and then few of the panelists that we have over here will take over this, and we'll start leading this, so that this is ongoing process to help the future generation. As for why, again, we are starting this, we want to start the discussion early. So that's why we are targeting students who are 15, 16-year-olds, or people who are just thinking that like 2 years out from applying to college, so that they can really prepare the test, putting together their documents and things like that. And as I'm wrapping up this session, I will talk about what are the things that those people will need to prepare for. And then good thing is that we have the panelists who are Gen Z, as Professor Minja said. They can correct me if some of the information that I have here is not correct, and I'll gladly accept that. Again, The other angle is that we really, imagination is everything, right? So we really want to light that fire. We want you to see the people who are already in these top schools that are already doing it. So we really want to talk to these people and say, hey, if you in your mind you're thinking that, oh, this is impossible, we want you to talk to the people who are already going to these top schools. They've done it, and they can tell you, hey, this is how I did it. And then hopefully that will inspire you to also charter your own course. So without further ado, I want to maybe give you a little bit of a summary of what we'll be doing here today. I want to spend like a couple minutes to really summarize some of the things that we talked last time when we did the one-on-one session, and I will go through them very, very quickly, and then I'll jump into the topic of the things that we want to talk about today, which are how to prepare for the SAT and ACT, these standardized tests, how to prepare yourself to write the right supplementary essays or statement of purpose or personal statement and things of that nature. And also the other important thing is how to start preparation for getting the recommendation letters that will be needed for your application. So let's go ahead and I'll be like repeating myself. Like the last time when we talked about this college application 101, we talked about starting applications very, very early. Yeah, you don't want to go through this process last minute and you're trying to crush everything in the last minute, figure out about your test scores while you're still taking classes, because we know people who are applying who are in high school, sometimes they're also taking college level courses. So it's really hard. And we really want you to understand that the way I'm telling people is that college application is like a course itself, or it's like work. It's not something easy. So you really want to start the process early. If you can take some of those standardized tests 18 months to 24 months before starting college. So it's almost like 2 years before the year that you're starting college. That way, if you need to go and retake some of those tests, because sometimes, as we spoke last time, there's an advantage to taking multiple times, as I will cover it later on when we are talking about the standardized tests. And this is a little bit confusing, the next subject that I'm going to talk about. That's why I did search about it quite a bit. And then as a result of that, I've been prompted with all kinds of resources, like early decision is this, early action is this. And I'm like, okay, out of all of those resources that I was getting back, the Crimson college prep was very more straightforward. So you'll see a few of these pictures that I'll be putting. I've adopted them from the Crimson website, and what they're talking about here is the difference between the early decision and early action. So let me take that back. What we suggested last time, we said students should apply for early action, which is non-binding, and few schools in early action, and then apply for more schools in regular decision, but not just target one school. Because for us, we definitely need that opportunity to have few options to consider. And there are a lot of things that we discussed in the previous session that one might need to consider. Financial aid, in college atmosphere in that particular school that you have been accepted, among many things. So having few options of schools that you have been accepted will be really working to your advantage. Now, as for the difference between early action and early decision, as it says there, early decision is binding. So if you apply early decision and you accept it, you have to go there. So why we kind of like tell people not to do that, but I've seen the side of that as well, which I'll talk about it in a couple slides, is that if you get accepted, you have to go there. So you really have to check your stuff to make sure that you have the financial aid, you have everything that is needed, or you have the money, so that when you accepted early decision, you go there. However, for the case of early action, that's not the case, right? And not many schools use that approach. For early action, it's non-binding. If you accept it, you still have the opportunity to think about it, whether you want to go to that school or not. And both of those, they usually, the early decision is usually early November or even October, and they respond to you in like 2-3 weeks. So if it's November, in this case, what they have there, 11th of November, by the first week of December, you already know which school you have been accepted. But for early action, you, even if you're accepted, you can kind of like saying, I found other options that I'm going to apply for regular decision, and you're not buying to that. And then the regular decision is usually what we advise people apply many, be strategic, and we're going to talk about that in few slides. Find mentors. Yeah, we talk about find mentors, counselors, and advisors. And mentors in some cases can be students that are a few years ahead of you in high school. Yeah, that way, if once they get into college, when you're still in high school, you have an opportunity to go to them and ask them for advice, for guidance, and things of that nature. Involve your parents in the process, so that some of these, I mean, most of these schools that we'll be talking about here today, they're extremely expensive. So you really need to bring your parents on board and talk about that. And for the part which I talked about, apply early and be strategic. Some of these extreme rich schools, right? These are the top schools, that the Harvard, Stanford, Princeton, MIT, and those types of school. The admission rate, acceptance rate is less than 10%. I mean, that's actually modest. It's usually 4 to like 6%, right? And when I talk about MIT, I will show you what that means. It's usually a little bit higher for domestic and actually lower for international. So if you're applying to those extreme rich schools, you want to be a little bit strategic and apply to few of those, right? And then there are rich schools, which are acceptance rate is a little bit higher, and then target. And then there are these what they call safety schools. These are schools that sometimes even when students, they're in high school, they're already accepted into those schools. They just need to do a formal application. So when we say strategic, you definitely want to cast a wide net, apply to those extreme, few reach, few target, and few safety school to improve your chances of getting in, right? So, and this is the part that we covered briefly about early decision, right? What has happened, this is new information which I got from one of the resources as I was researching about this, is that some of the schools, like the top schools, Harvard, Yale, MIT, they had a lower acceptance rate for the early round this year, expecting that they will pick more in the regular decision. So that's actually counter to, I mean, to the argument that some of the other schools like Dartmouth, Brown, and Duke, what they have done is that they've increased the admission in the early decision, knowing that most of those students who get in, they will probably likely to go there. So in this case, I was looking at some of the numbers that Dartmouth acceptance rate for the early decision, which is binding, it was about 20%, right? So that there and then you can start thinking about this process, which is why we were emphasizing that you really want to be strategic, cast a wide net, and then that way, whether you're going early action or you're going early decision, so that you're a little bit strategic. The good thing about early decision, if you don't get in, you easy, you have a chance of applying into other schools in the regular decision period. And I don't know if Nolan is joining, has a little more experience for doing things like that. Yep. So for the topics of today, how to prepare for standardized tests, definitely start early, right? There's this notion that, suggestion that you want to take it multiple times. And the reason for that is some of the schools, they accept what they call super score or compound score. What it means by that, they take the high score of either of the tests. If it's the math or the English, if you've done it like 3 times, they take the high scores for any of those, and then they do that super score, and then that's what they will use for your application. Not all the schools do that, though. So advantage of in addition to taking it multiple times so that you can get your super score, advantage for that is that when you take it the first time, okay, maybe you take it when you're at very young age, maybe 2-3 years prior, you have an opportunity to go back and train and take prep tests and then retake it and then increase your score. Yeah, this is one thing which is interesting. During the COVID period, most of these standardized tests became optional. And even the top schools, people were not required to submit their standardized tests. This is changing. It's changing back to become non-optional. And most of the top schools, they've announced that these tests are non-optional. The only school that I haven't heard them announce that they will become non-optional is Columbia University, one of the Ivy Leagues. They have announced they're never going back. It's always going to be non-optional. So all the other factors that play in somebody getting into the college will be relevant. In the next slide, I will talk a little bit about the one of the examples when we say test scores, why we emphasize people should get high scores, right? And the reason for that is, if you look at this MIT example, last year they had like 21,000 people applied and 1,000 got admitted, right? And that's like 4-5% of that. Now, if you look at those applicants, the SAT scores for those applicants, it was in the range of 780 and 800. So your scores have to be really high for you to get any consideration into those schools. And then for the English part, it was a little bit lower, 740 to 780. Those are min max, right? The exceptional cases where it can be lower, or it can be high. If it's high, it's better for you. But yeah, I put the link over there where I got this information. The good thing about this, because we'll be posting this and this will be recorded and it will be posted. You can go back and look into that website and look for other things, like what are the things that they look for. Some of the things that we've put them together here. We'll talk about them a little bit today. But yeah, what are the things that they look for? What the admission statistics and things like that, so that when you're planning for this process, you're really preparing yourself and you're setting yourself up for success. So just to summarize, take these standardized tests early. If you have to take them multiple times, take them multiple times. That way you increase your chances of getting high scores. As you can see, some of these top schools, they really look for very, very high scores. So you want to improve your chances, because this is one of the things that they look for when they are admitting students into their programs. It is for the personal statement. I try to put few things, the do's and don'ts, and this is pretty much from some of the research that I've done. And I know last time when we were doing this session, I mentioned that last time I applied for colleges was 25 years ago. So some of the information that I might share may be old. So I'm really looking forward during the panel session for the Gen Zs, millennials to really chime in and help me out on this, if there's anything that I have here that is no longer relevant, right? So the do's, always used to, it has been, and always that it's your personal background, right? It should be your unique story. I mean, we tell everybody, like, everybody has a unique story. So, and the person that should tell what you think, you are the best person to tell us, one, for example, your individuality, uniqueness, and then remember that there's no one that can tell it better than like you. So you just need to work with people that have experience on how to write these things, and have a lot of people review your personal statements. That way, if you have things that are not making sense, they are not connecting, I'll talk about the themes later and you'll know exactly what I mean by that. So if you need to fix it, that's you can get help from those people. It can be counselors, it can be family members, and people who have done it, right? The don'ts. Please don't repeat the things that you mentioned previously. That okay, remember I have my ACT scores is 800, right? And things like that. No. It should be something unique in the story that we've talked about above. Do not use generative AI. Yeah, I know recently, even myself, this is actually not a very good thing, but uh, people who are using generative AI even for resumes and CVs, right? And unfortunately, they don't clean it up. And ChatGPT and things like that, they have those generic statements. So if you use things like that, these admission officers, they've looked at thousands and thousands of these things. They will be able to tell if it's not you talking. So do not use generative AI. Write it yourself. And please, no grammatical mistakes. And that's what I mean by that. Have a lot of people review them, and then that way they can give you the feedback. This is the part that I'm not going to talk a lot more about it, and I'm going to leave it to the panelists to cover a little bit more. But it's about your narrative. Like what is your narrative? And pretty much this is, what are the subjects and activities that excite you? What have you been consistently doing? I mean, okay, you could be like somebody who's athletic or participating in sports, somebody who's artistic, and so those are the things that are fitting into your narrative, and you definitely wanna talk about those as you're writing your personal statements, things that you love to discuss. You have to also, this is one thing that I always talk to the people that I mentor and coach. You have to, your story has to be consistent, right? And we will talk a little bit later what I mean by that. But I mean, definitely put your best foot forward. What achievements you would like to you're most proud of, you would like to talk about them. Definitely discuss those. The other thing, this is something that it came up as I was doing this research, right? It was like what those admission officers look for in your statement, like how genuine you are, how insightful. So it all goes back to the things that about you, like what were your extracurricular activities, the things that you have you're so proud of that you have done in your community, and you think you've made an impact. You want to definitely talk about them, right? And always like your strong writing. That's why we talk about, definitely have a lot of people review these statements, share with your colleagues, allow them to critique you, and yeah, when it's positive feedback, definitely take that in, because it's only going to help you, right? And I'm going to go briefly talking about writing your essays, but this is something that I hope the panelists again can help us, right? And this is something that also Professor Minja mentioned earlier, that hey, I mean, the writing essays is not something that from the feedback that he got from Twitter is not important. I would beg to differ, right? Because for us, for example, who are coming from um, Nectar or training in Tanzania, usually these SATs, especially the math part, is the easy part. But you still wonder why majority of us don't make it to these top schools. And I will tell you one of the reasons, either it's SAT or at grad level where you're dealing with GRE and GMAT, is usually the writing, right? And to the GRE, when I was going to grad school, I took it several times, and I couldn't crack anything above 4.5. The maximum is 6, right? And the reason for that is there's a style of writing. There's a style of writing, how you start, what's that punchline that you have, and how do you close, and the symmetry and the things like that. And people who are educated in the US, that who go to private schools and get the best education, they have the skills to do those things. So if you're not one of those people, definitely find coaches that can help you to write the right way, right? How you start your outline, how you put your personal background in there. Choose your word carefully. You don't repeat your words over and over. And then go through multiple rounds of doing that until you get the best out of that essay that you're trying to submit, right? And then this is something that I covered earlier. Do not write the content that rehashes the information that you have already included in other parts of your application, and or use unnecessary or net or convoluted language and things like that. It's not going to impress these admission officers. So definitely don't do that, and do not misconstrue these supplementary essays as something that is easy, that you can sit in one sitting and submit. Even though those questions, they're short, but they're tricky. And I know this because I worked with few students who are applying in the last couple of years. So I know some of those questions, and I've read some of those responses. And sometimes I go back and I tell them, I think you can do better here, because your story is not coherent, or it's counter to your original argument about the things that you talk in your personal statement. So there's this thing about theme. You definitely want to keep that tight. And this is one of the other things that we always talk about, what the admission officers are looking for, but you also need to go through this process and figure it out. Like, I mean, are you applying into the academic program? Are you applying into an area that you can tolerate the weather out there? Because, like, if you're applying in the Northeast, you should definitely be ready for the snows for 5 to 6 months of a year and things of that nature. And campus culture is another important thing. I think when we were doing the SHIP podcast, a lot of people talk about the campus culture. You definitely want to talk to students that have gone to that school or are going to that school to tell you like it is, not sugar-coated or anything. And then you decide yourself if that is the right school for you. But then there is this underlying thing that why we always emphasize people to apply to top schools, right? It's your career potential. You definitely don't want to get your degree. You pay 200,000, 300,000 for that degree, and then you don't have any opportunity to pursue your career forward, whether you're getting jobs or getting the right skills that can allow you to do the things yourself, right? So that's one of the reasons why we say, hey, I mean, definitely, as you're applying, consider those top schools, because as you will talk to the panelists, they will tell you, like, some of the resources that they have there, they're unbelievable. Some of the research they do there is unbelievable. Like, I do a part of the things that I do recently is I'm a representative for my organization at MIT, at the Wyss Institute. So I get to see the top-notch research that they do there. And I'm always in awe when I see, like, wow, these are the things that students and the professors are researching at that early level. So you wanna get, if possible, and if you have the right grades, you have the right potential, you wanna expose yourself to to those environments, so that you have a better chance for a good career, right? Extracurricular activities, and I will sum it up. I'm only going to sum it up in the next, like, 5-10 minutes. But extracurricular activities are super important. I mean, I have things that I've copied on the left side, but on the right side, I'm giving examples, direct examples of those things. What are those things that you have done? Are you participating in a debating club? Have you raised money for your community, for people who are underserved? Are you doing tuition, things like what Omari was talking about last time? Giving tuitions to high school students to help them elevate their scores and things like that. Participated in marathon, traveled with the club. I know when we were at Mzizima about 20, 30 years ago, people were doing this Mount Kilimanjaro expedition and things like that. Are you a Girl Guide, Boy Scout, participated in a band, won academic or arts competition, or led a sports team to championship, things like that Harry has done. I don't know if Harry's here. So yeah, I mean, those are the things that you may not think they matter, but they do, because they show that you have that extra punch that some of the applicants or majority of the applicants will not have them. So definitely elevate that. And for the theme part, as I'm wrapping up, the theme is woven throughout your college application. And I'll give you an example, right? If you portray yourself as competitive, somebody who has high scores, somebody who's going to bring something completely unique to the university because of your background, because of your family background, financial situation, you name it, and then hard worker, you don't want to contradict that by saying, oh, I'm not a morning person. I walk out. The things that I wake up early in the morning around 10 a.m. That's like shooting yourself in the foot. So you have to have a theme or themes that it's the same theme all throughout your application. And this is the part that I really would want people like Raja, if he's here. I call him Attorney Raj. He goes to Harvard and he's doing his JD Law over there, and he really enlightened me when he was talking about this. So if he's there, he can join us during the panelist session and can talk about that as well. So how you connect the academic and extracurricular activities and how you do that, that's also an art. But then at the end of the day, why? Why should they care, right? So what? Right? And that is the part that you really need to work on it, to make sure that, hey, I'm competitive. I have these high scores. I'm done art. And the way I'm going to use art with my in my pre-medical program, and the resources that you have over there will allow me to get into my medical degree program. And this probably Frank can help us with that as well, and give us examples of things that he has done. But I just put a few examples over there. Is like, I mean, which problem are you interested to solve? It's not like, what are you going to be when you grow up? I mean, a lot of that has changed. These days is like, which problem are you interested in solving? And how have you started exploring? What type of extracurricular activities are you doing? What type of competitions are you involving yourself, so that you build that resilience to allow you to really to be successful in the things that you wish to pursue? And then why should they care, right? So things of that nature. Letters of recommendation, I'm going to go really quick. Is get many of these recommendation letters. Review them if you can. What I mean by that is a sad story for sometimes you collect some of these recommendation letters and then they are not written very well, right? So this is one thing. Very, very early when I was applying for college, somebody advised me, hey, I mean, when you're writing recommendation letter, ask for you to get the paper writing as well. And if possible, open that recommendation letter and see what they're writing, to see if that really is something that is a representative of what you want to put forward. And sometimes when you do that, you realize that, oh, this is not something that doesn't jive with the story that I'm trying to put for my applications. And then you put that forward. So have those strongest recommendation letters as part of your application process. That will improve your chances of getting in. So just to wrap it up, these are the roughly, and I did a lot of research, as I was saying earlier, and these are those things, top 5 things that came up, right? And it's the academic achievement. It's a college admission, so they look into your academic. Don't be fooled like they won't look into a GPA, a standardized tests and stuff like that. No, they will, because at the end of the day, it's an academic program. They're looking for people who have the potential to pursue and to be in their program, which is, for the top schools, is extremely hard. They want to see your best efforts, see that you have growth in you, and you have the intellectual curiosity to really thrive in their program. So if you have taken some of the AP classes for the program that you're trying to get in, that will help you, right? Extracurricular activities, we have talked quite a bit about that. personal achievement. We've talked quite a bit on that. Passion and commitment, that will come in your personal statement. So just make sure you're consistent, right? And then the personal qualities and character, those are the things that, they show leadership, responsibility, teamwork, empathy, and integrity. Those are the things that they mostly come up when you go through the interview. For the regular decision application, sometimes they call you for an interview. And in most cases, they just want to see if you are who you are on paper, right? So usually alumni, they will send you an email and say, hey, would you like to meet up for an interview for your application at Harvard or at Princeton University? So what they look for over there, hey, are you who you are on paper? And definitely nail that. I don't know if Raja is here. Raja told me like, hey, I killed the interview process. I had my numbers tight. I had my story tight. And then I just blew the socks out of that interviewer, right? So you definitely want to prepare yourself and put yourself best foot forward for you to be successful. I know this next slide is one of the things that most people or most parents are interested in is, okay, I mean, students, kids can apply to this. What are the chances of them to get in, right? And this is, I was able to get some of the schools that offer free tuition. And that is the family income. So for example, Harvard, if your family income is less than 65K, you go there for free. So you just have to have all of those things that we listed previously that will allow you to get free tuition to go and study there. And how are they able to do that? They have large endowment money. They have that power to support the students for their tuition, which can go from 70,000 all the way to 80,000 a year. So it's a lot of money. And that financial aid goes all the way to 150K. And I think above that, the aid is smaller. It's not all 100%. It can be 40%, it can be 50%, but it's still substantial. Yale the same way, MIT. That's all family income. It's not a single income. Yeah. If your mom and dad both work, it's a combination of your financial statement, and then that determines whether you can get in or not. And then I have Columbia University over there, same thing. Stanford, they go all the way to 200,000, and Brown. Actually, the cool thing about Brown is even if your income is less than 60K, I think the way they have it, if 2 times the poverty line is what can determine whether you will be able to get in. So so some of the schools they're like that. And then there is again the UNC Chapel Hill. Well, I don't know why I wrote Caroline over there. The Carolina Covenant, and you can do a research on that. But these are just like 6-7 schools that I was able to find, but there are a lot more. So, including state schools, do research about state schools. The tuition fees sometimes are low over there, but in your high school, from previous scholarships, you can get funding that can allow you to get full ride in some of those schools. And I believe we have few panelists that have that experience. They can talk about that. But definitely do a lot more research, figure out what's your path, and just go forward, right? This is the part that I'm going to talk about the timeline, why we emphasize people to apply, to start that application process early, the things that we have just talked about today, right? So that you can identify what type of extracurricular activities that you want to start pursuing them even at 8th to 10th grade. I was talking to one of the parents a couple of days ago, and she was telling me, oh, my son is like 9th grade. I was telling her, perfect. Then she's probably one of the people that we want to talk to, or he's probably one of the people that we want to talk to, because that is the time that they need to identify what are those clubs that I want to participate, what are the mentors that I want to work with, and things of that nature. And then when it gets to 10th, 11th grade is when you take the SAT, ACT scores tests, and that actually goes hand in hand with what I mentioned earlier. You definitely want to take these early, and then have a deep exploration of what are your areas of interest. At that point, you want to know if you can't just say, oh, I want to study engineering. Engineering, there are like 20 different engineering programs. Or you can't say that I want to do electrical engineering. Okay, electrical engineering. Electrical engineering, we talked, as we spoke in the previous session, you have like 6, 7 different areas of interest in electrical engineering as well. So you want to start thinking, this is not to put pressure on you, but just to identify what are the things that you really like, what are things that move you, and how do you plan to contribute, to bring an impact into the community, into the society. So you want to start thinking about that. Okay, what is your why? Like Nolan said in one of the SHIP programs. Find out your why, and then that way you can know what program to apply in college. But don't stress too much about that as well, right? Because some colleges, I don't know if Brown, they still have that, but some colleges, they have the first year is just generic. Everything is generic. You don't have any specific course that you're going to study. Everybody takes the same courses. And then from second year is when you concentrate and decide which program you're going to take. So if you're in that boat, then those are the schools that you want to apply, so that as you're going through the program, you're also deciding how you want to pursue your career. And then they have over there, if you need to retake, you retake it. If you didn't get perfect score over here, you retake it. And then that improves your chances of getting that better super score that you can use in some of these schools. Yeah. And then applying, this is usually early second grade, meaning like the final year, 12th grade, meaning the final year of your high school, is when you're putting together these applications, whether it's early decision, early action, or regular decision, and things of that nature. So if you look at this timeline, it clearly tells you like you wanna be prepared all the way back here in the end of 10th grade, to really set yourself up for success. And that is that 18 to 24 months that we were talking about earlier. So I hope this was helpful. At this point, I would like to introduce some of the panelists. And Frank, if you can help me out, I don't know who's there and who's
no,
not there.
That's great. I think we have all. Now, one, thank you so much, Asante. That was like a comprehensive overview, and really, I think hopefully our panelists can sort of like do some reflection on part of this. If you just go back 2 slides, where you were talking about the top 5 or 6 things that people can do, like right here. I think this to me is really the take home slide for this presentation today. I think even in the previous presentation, people were saying things like, GPA doesn't matter, or like your test scores don't matter. I mean, really, it's like you're applying for an academic program. I mean, how can measures of academic performance not matter? I mean, that's really kind of like nonsense. So I would really say, of all these things, 80% of your effort has to be towards academic achievement. These other things are sort of to round you out, right? And the idea here is actually a disservice if you're getting 1,600 on your SAT and you have 0 extracurricular activities, right? Because then basically you spent all your life just trying to like study to pass the SAT, and that's like a big waste of time. But at the same time, it's like a balance, right? So it's better to kind of like get like a 1,500 SAT, but then you have a lot more other in your extracurriculars and other like personal achievements and whatnot. So I think this is really like, I really like this slide, and it can really help our students to kind of know where to focus your efforts. I would say 70 to 80% of your efforts has to be just in your regular classes, selecting classes that are challenging, performing well on those classes, and whatnot. And many of these colleges have an idea that if you just kind of pad your classes, you take all easy classes for your higher levels or APs, that also shows that, that's not really academic rigor, because they're looking for you to be a little bit challenged, looking for you to kind of go outside your comfort zone and kind of like perform well. So we really want our panelists to hopefully hone in some of these things and how they kind of navigated it. And the other piece, if you go to the financial aid, we should mention that most college applications are need blind. That they don't evaluate you based on your parental income. They evaluate it on these 5 to 6 criteria. Once you get admitted, then we talk about how you're going to pay for it, right? So this also should hopefully free up the families to basically apply to the best school you can get into. And then we'll talk about how to sort of finance that education sort of moving forward. So I would hate for people to look at these numbers and say, this is a waste of time. There's no way I could afford this kind of stuff. It's really a big disservice. And so students can apply to any school. And I would say nearly 100% of the colleges are need blind. They're going to admit you based on your credentials, based on your dossier. Once you're admitted, then they'll talk about how can we finance that education. And then it's basically a combination of the scholarship, a combination of loans, and a combination of what the family can afford. And then it's a matter for the families to decide, whether it makes sense in terms of how much they have to pay, or it makes sense in terms of how much loans the student and the family have to take to afford the education. Remember that education is an investment in your future. So while those numbers sound astronomical, but also means if you do really well, you'll get compensated way multiples of those numbers. So again, it's not, I just need to kind of put that in perspective. So I think now we can definitely go to our panelists.
Professor Minja, you want to wrap up on the application timeline, because this is one thing that we always talk about this, right?
The timeline is key, right? The timeline is, and this is where a lot of the Tanzanian students get into trouble, because they start thinking about college application in grade 12. That is the same way we're doing this session in January of 2025, and there's still people who have not submitted the application. Right? It's like, it's kind of unconscionable, basically, right? So we are trying to avoid that. So hopefully we are speaking to majority of people who are going to be applying for 2026. And so that will give them at least a 12-month runway. And then for those who are applying for 2027, then this is basically perfect, because then they have 24 months to kind of absorb this information, right? So I think 24 months is probably the sweet spot in terms of when you want to kind of be a little bit, start to get serious about this application process, and also setting yourselves up. Because again, if you're not getting good grades in grade 8, 9, and 10, then there's very little you can do in grade 11 to kind of reverse that, right? So that's the issue. So you want to enter high school with a little bit of a positive momentum that you can kind of build on. So that's why I think it can never be too early for parents and students to just, again, focus more on your academics, and again, exploring who you are and whatnot. But I would say, seriously, you need about 24 months to complete the examination preparations, the essays, and also the college selection. I think that would be a very comfortable pace for doing this. So this, I guess, will be sort of Form 4 and Form 5 is really where you should be doing a lot of the prep work. And then by the time you enter Form 6, then pretty much you're just submitting the applications and so forth. So yeah, the timeline is perfect. And I think I'm very happy that they're talking to grade 8, because in that way, people in middle school, towards the end of middle school, you should start thinking about what you gotta be doing, in high school and so forth. So I think, again, introducing these concepts also, because sometimes the concepts take time to sort of sink in and be oh, what they're saying is actually true. So you may need to hear this a couple of times before it becomes obvious. So that's so I will leave it there, and I think now we can maybe just have some Q&A with our panelists, and hopefully they can reflect on 2 things I would love to hear from them: is the exam preparation tips, and then any other things regarding extracurriculars, how they balance that, because sometimes students have a hard time balancing those things and whatnot. So far, I think we have Christopher Samali, Hanifa Maswali, and Jamal Magoti. So those are the ones who are with us. And then anybody else who has questions,
Natifa is also here.
Natifa is also here. So, all right, so I will.
So Natifa is also here.
So you can call.
Let me introduce them briefly.
All right.
Yeah, let me introduce them briefly, and then once I call up your name, you can come in and tell us a little bit about yourself.
Awesome.
But I Nadifa, I've known her for almost all of her life. Yeah, I know her parents, and it's interesting to hear that right now she's going to college at UMass here in the Boston area, and yeah, will be really nice to hear what's her experience over there at college, and I think the specific question that I have for her will be probably how she was able to get full financial aid to study there. So that is for Hanifa, and I don't know if Harry is here, but Christopher is somebody that we just met. He just graduated from Georgia Tech. He's in computer engineering, and uh, yeah, so it would be really interesting to hear from him. What are the things that he experienced when he was going through the application process? If there's any advice that he has to offer for the youngsters, that would be really, really awesome. And then we also have Yuma. So yeah, so let's start with Christopher while Nadifa is pulling
All
herself
right.
up.
Awesome. And
You're
then
able to
we
introduce.
can I guess we can stop screen share, and then that way they can have the full floor.
I'll do that. Let me do that. Okay. Stop screen share.
All right.
Yeah.
Awesome. Karibu, Christopher, the floor is yours.
Hi, my name is Chris. Can y'all hear me?
Yeah. Speak up a little bit.
Okay, got you.
Awesome.
So I just graduated from Georgia Tech this past December. Um, I was studying computer engineering with concentrations in robotics and autonomous systems and distributed system and software design. Originally I applied to tech as computer science and got in as computer science. uh, with the intention of like minoring in chemistry because I had like computational chemistry research experience back in high school with my like local community college, which was Georgia Gwinnett College. Um, a little bit about like my background, at least in like high school. I've mainly applied to a lot of those top schools. Tech was one of the only schools I applied to in state. It was like Tech in Georgia State. Um, Applied for like Harvard, UPenn, Northwestern, NYU. I got waitlisted for NYU and a couple other schools I don't really remember at the moment, but I mean, I filled in most of like the general stats, like GPA was like a 389, took like
Nice.
12 APs, took
Nice.
multi and linear algebra,
Nice.
multivariable calculus and
What
linear
were your
algebra.
study habits for the SAT specifically?
SAT,
Yeah.
I use Khan Academy.
Okay.
They offer like seven like full practice exams, and I recommend grinding all of them
Mm-hmm.
and or as many as you can, and then do it multiple times. Key is to
Okay.
do it multiple times,
Okay.
so that you really understand the format of it and you're good at the timing for it all.
Okay.
I struggled more in
And so when
the
you took the SAT, you actually had a timer. You actually simulated the full exam.
Yes, I think that's pretty important. Maybe in the beginning you can like, as long as like maybe your first exam or two, you don't necessarily need a timer, but going forward, you should like try to like simulate what it's like to be in like the real testing environment. Because then it just translates better.
Mm-hmm.
Math was never really a problem for me.
Mm-hmm.
It was more so like the reading section. I don't think you really need to do the writing section anymore. I don't think they like fully require it. I would double check depending on
Only
the
for
school.
SATs. Only for ACTs, I think they do the writing.
They do, but like I don't necessarily know if they check that score as
Got it.
much.
Mhm.
They
Okay.
may, but
Okay.
I think it's like optional, if I'm not
Okay.
mistaken.
Okay. So you said something very important there on the simulation for the test preparation. And we encounter this even when people are preparing for like medical school exams and beyond. Many students they don't do the test environment, right? So they kind of answer the question, they get it wrong, they look at the answer and they feel good and they keep going, which kind of like waste the whole like exam sort of like experience. So it's again, for medical school and so forth, we basically encourage people to do like testing blocks, right? So basically you gotta take the block in that allotted time, whether it's like 35 minutes or 45 minutes, what you gotta sit down, put a timer, and basically, you know, do the best in that block. And as you said, at some point, you definitely want to build it up to doing the full set. And again, I'm trying to really go back to that period, because that's what many of our students are gonna have to do as they're sort of preparing for their application. So did you do the testing at home? Did you go to a library? How did you get that sort of like undistracted time? How did you do, like, switch off your phone, switch off your social media? Like, how did you do that?
I mean, it's been like 5-6 years since I've taken it.
It's
I
still
think
much,
I did most of it.
much
Most of
recent
it,
compared to us.
yeah. I think I did most of it at home. But if you have a local library, I would recommend going. I might have gone to the library a few times, but most of it I think I did at home.
What was your score? What was your score, Christopher? I forgot. I don't know if you mentioned.
For my SAT, I don't remember what my. It was in like the 1300s. I don't remember what my reading score was, but I know my math score was, I think, like a 750 or 760, which is like what you needed to be able to get into like tech and a lot of those other schools. But like MIT, you need like, I think, a 780, 790.
Okay.
So like, but like I didn't apply to like MIT.
Okay.
But
why didn't you apply to MIT?
I didn't think I was gonna get in. I didn't have the scores for it. Like my AP exams, I got majority like threes. I got like 1.4, but they were gonna, but it was in statistics. And I wasn't like, I didn't think my essays were good enough.
Okay.
At least like quality wise. Like I would have, I spent a lot of time writing some of my essays, especially for like Penn and Duke. Because I applied to Penn and Duke before I applied to Georgia Tech. And I think by by doing that, I like each time I applied to a new school, I edited my essay and made it better, which I think helped me actually also get into tech too. But yeah.
One question I'll ask you. Did you decide not to apply to MIT, or did your guidance counselor tell you not to apply to MIT? Who made the call that you were not competitive enough?
I did.
Oh, you made it?
Got it.
I think I technically, like, I still could have. I just didn't. I applied to Harvard, but I didn't apply to MIT.
Okay. Yeah, I'm only saying that because, again, to encourage our applicants, you know,
I would shoot for high.
So basically, you just apply, right? Don't be the admissions officer and the applicants.
Yeah.
Let the admissions officer decide that you can't come here, right?
Especially if the application is free. You're only investing on your time. And I tell this even to my nieces and nephews that are applying right now, that definitely apply to MIT and Harvard. Those are schools that they're unique in the way they admit students. Sometimes they can go to somebody in the 1200, but only because they're artistic. They're bringing the athletic abilities. They have awesome writing skills. They do that.
Yeah.
I think though, you should also apply to schools which you like, even if it's among them, the ones which you might feel like you fit in the best. Because I feel like I would have fit in better at UPenn than I would have fit in like at Harvard or some of those other schools. So I would like, if you can, go on a tour, see what their like campus life is like and the campus culture, and know like what the general vibe of the people are.
What grade did you go on those tours, or would you recommend?
I never went on any tours personally, except for like I went to Georgia Tech's campus and UGA's campus for like science Olympiad competitions, which I think was like, it wasn't like an official tour, but I got a little sense of like what campus life was like. And I actually did mention that, I think, in my supplemental essay. I would recommend going early, like maybe between like sophomore year and junior year.
Okay.
So you have like more of like because like junior year, you're taking all your like harder classes, like almost you're like, after you're taking a lot of AP classes, that's a good time to start taking them.
Okay.
And it will help you, I guess, have a little bit more focus on like what schools you want to go to.
Awesome.
I
And
would say
also,
definitely
it
before
sounds
your
like you
senior.
did some work at your community college in terms of the computational chemistry, and what was that also during your junior and senior years, and how was that taking classes at a community college in terms of your preparation?
It was volunteering,
Okay.
and it was, yeah, it was during my junior, going into my a little bit into my senior year.
Okay.
Most of what I was doing was like stuff related to like simulations and like math, like linear algebra, which is like a very high advanced like thing for most high school students to be able to do.
Absolutely.
And it was cool to be able to at least apply something which I learned from the classroom to like, I guess, a real research realm.
Awesome.
But I would say that was one of my bigger extracurriculars, but I had a bunch of other ones too. That to
Awesome.
balance.
So Frankie, this is awesome hearing from Christopher. I see that the 2-3 other panelists that are here.
Yep.
While Nadhifa, you're preparing yourself, can we welcome Jamal Magoti to so that we
Yeah,
can also get
absolutely.
some of his insights? And thank you so much, Christopher. This is really
That's
awesome.
awesome. Yeah,
And
so stay
thank you.
tuned. We got more questions. Just kind
We
of
got
walk
we got more questions, and let's definitely connect, Christopher, after this, because and I always tell people that I mean there are a lot of parents who are participating in this call. There are a lot of doctors, engineers who they really want to know you if there's any way that they can help coach you or mentor you for your career as well. So yeah, definitely let's keep in touch and see how we can help you as well going forward.
Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, Karibu Jamal. Yeah, definitely would love to hear again. I would, I guess, just for this 201, 301 session, we really want to hear you guys reflect on your SAT preparation, so the test prep, and maybe extracurriculars and all of that, just to kind of keep with the theme of helping those who are applying or those who are basically going to be studying for the exam. So, Karibu Jamal, floor is yours.
Asante sana. So I'm gonna try and remember this because it's been a while for me as well. Right now I'm a first year medical student at Penn.
Yeah.
So I graduated like undergrad in 2023. So it's been a while since I took the SATs. But I think Christopher mentioned Khan Academy, and I remember using those videos on Khan Academy and using the practice tests. And I may be wrong. I think they were free at the time. I don't know if they still are. So that's a really good thing.
Okay.
And yeah, just watch the videos, learn the concepts, take as many practice tests as you can. And as Christopher was saying again, like you want to simulate test day as much as possible. So if it's like having a timer, if it's just like being in a place with no distractions, like try as much as possible to be prepared for the test. Like when you're taking the practice tests, imagine like you're actually sitting in that test room and you're taking your actual SATs, and that's going to help you in the long run. Extracurriculars, I think, again, it's been a while, but I also just recently applied to med school, and I think it's kind of along the same lines with extracurriculars. From what I haven't been understanding is like they want to see that you're human, like you're someone who's interesting. I mean, if you're applying to Harvard or like Princeton or like all these big schools, I'm sure you're already like gifted academically, like you have the grades. But so do the other like 10,000 applicants applying there. Like they all have amazing grades. So they want to see like what makes you different from everyone else who's applying there. And that's why your personal statement, that's why your extracurriculars come in. You want to show them like, oh, there's this thing I'm passionate about, this thing that means this to me. This is what I've done about it. This is how I hope to do it or like continue doing this if you admit me. So just try and find
Do
things.
you remember what you pitched in your personal statement? What was the main theme of your personal statement, just in general terms?
Let me see.
Mine was about soccer.
Oh yeah, let's. So while Jamal is
Yeah, let me
How
think
can you
about it.
forget? That's only been like 6-7 years, dude. It hasn't been that long. When you get to our age, it's gonna be like, oh my God, that's like decades. Christopher, so what did you write about soccer? What did you say about soccer? Just in broad terms.
Well, for context, I had played soccer all my life. I played club. I was JV captain. I just like wrote about like this one time when I was like, I think it was like some game experience and like a lesson that I've learned. I forgot what the prompt was,
Okay.
but I just remember like trying to make like a lot of like vivid details, but also like I learned from an experience and also met a lot of people through soccer,
Right.
which like
And I
helped like
guess
push
captain
me.
also kind of gives you the leadership piece.
Yep. Yep.
So that's so that lead is more, it's like leadership and initiative. I think this was also in one of Asanta's slides, right? Those are very difficult to show just based on academics, right? So you can get great grades in biology, chemistry, and whatnot. It doesn't mean that you have leadership or you have like sort of self-initiative and so forth. And when you come into the college environments, obviously you're not going to be with your parents. So we want to be sure that you have self-initiative. Can you start things? Can you lead things? Right? Because that's how you gotta get stuff done. I don't know if, John, if you can remember, that's fine. If you can't, that's fine. But I think again, just to give our folks ideas, because again, in Tanzania, if people are kind of going through the regular curriculum, nectar and so forth, a lot of these things are not emphasized, right? So we don't emphasize extracurricular. We don't emphasize community service. Like those are kind of, they're not really considered academic. They're not really considered useful for getting to university. So sometimes we have to articulate what exactly are you going to like what are you gonna like talk about in your personal statement?
Yeah, so I actually I just recalled what I wrote about. So
Yeah.
I went to high school at a UWC in Canada, and one of the activities I was involved in was kayaking. And so right before my application process, we just completed like a project week where we kayaked for like a whole week around some islands in the area. And that's
Nice.
what I wrote about. I just wrote about just the feeling of being in the water and like how much I loved kayaking, how like I was also a leader in the kayaking activity. A lot about like being able to take care of the people who are around you and being able to make sure that everyone is safe. And like it had
Awesome.
nothing to do with my grades at all.
Awesome.
Wow.
Awesome.
Super
But you're taking care of people, right?
Yeah.
That's huge. That's actually more important. That it's again, it's kind of like strange when you say that in the US environment, like those qualities are very rare, unfortunately, in our society here. So they really sort of stand out because we're a very individualistic society in the United States. So the fact that you will pause to think about your teammates is like, whoa. Not if people are like, I'm gonna think about me, man. I'm gonna think about me scoring. I'm not gonna think about the team. So I think any team, any leadership, any sort of self-initiative, not everybody's gonna go kayaking in the middle of like nowhere. So that shows initiative, like you're exploring, you're sort of going beyond your comfort zone. So I'm just articulating these things so other folks who may not have these experiences can reflect on their own sort of experience and then therefore like have like something good to write about or something good to kind of like explore and so forth. So that's really great. So one thing before I let you go, Jumama Goto, you mentioned UWC. I think we had pitched it last time.
Yep.
If you can just share a little bit about how you discovered the UWC, how you went there. That's the United World College. I think we pitched it last time, and I'm really a big fan of the United World College experience. But maybe just share a little bit of how you found out about United World College and about that.
Yeah, so I think by the time I was applying, I think UWC was, I don't want to say like a well-kept secret. It was just not very well known among a lot of schools. It was very specific schools in Tanzania that knew about UWC. I think it's changing for the better now. I think more schools and more students are becoming aware of the existence of UWC, and especially now that we have a new UWC in Tanzania.
Yep.
But basically, UWC is a set of these 18 schools around the world, and basically you apply to the national committee, and then they decide like in what part of the world or in which school you're going to end up in. And the theme of the school is just kind of like bringing people together from like different cultures, different nationalities, like different backgrounds, and you study together, you live together, and in that kind of in the hopes of fostering like this intercultural understanding in terms of just, you live in close proximity with people who might be like so completely different from you, and you have to interact with them every day. So that kind of just builds up how you interact with everyone, how you approach things, and how you see the world. And I think, yeah. And
How did you find
academically,
out about it? You said it was a well-kept secret. How did you crack the code?
I think I was very lucky. I went to Fesa Boys, which is
Nice.
one of the schools that knew about like I guess the faculty there knew about UWC, so it was told to us by our faculty. But yeah,
So basically, does everybody who goes to Feza have a chance to apply to UWC, or they select a few? Is there like a selection process? How does that work?
I mean anyone can apply to UWC,
Uh-huh.
and it doesn't matter what school you went to or what. Like as they just have like a requirement, like an age requirement, and like you must have completed Form 4, I believe.
Okay.
And then of course like you have to have good academics, and like
Okay. Great.
it's a whole application itself. But
No,
like
it's a big. And then last point is, I think UWC gives you guys like a nice like scholarship or something.
Yes.
oh yeah, it does. So the video is actually showing the UWC I went to, and I got like a full scholarship. So like they paid for everything, my tuition, my
Nice.
flights, everything.
Yeah.
Nice.
But not only do you get a scholarship to UWC, I believe you get a scholarship to college.
Yes. So
You're keeping the
UWC.
secrets,
Yeah.
No.
I'm
It's
having
been
to
a while, so like
I'm having to like bring it
hopefully
back
this
here.
helps.
Give us the
So-
whole thing.
UWC has a partnership with over, I want to say like close to 100 like different colleges and universities in the US, where you get like, if you apply to those schools and you get in, you're automatically granted like this UWC, this Davis UWC scholarship, which it usually doesn't cover like everything, but it will cover like a good amount. And if you like add that up with like the financial aid you get from the school, that's how I ended up going to like college, like tuition free, debt free.
Awesome.
Fantastic. Great stuff. Really appreciate you sharing, Yamal. That's really phenomenal. And I have several colleagues who've gone to the UWC. It's an incredible opportunity. I believe you apply when you're Form 4, because the UWC is Form 5 and 6. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct.
Right, awesome. Yep. So for those who have kids in Form 3 and Form 4, there's an opportunity for you. Jamal just shared the secrets. Then you can get full ride in high school, full ride in college, and which is just like an incredible opportunity. Hopefully that has given Nadifa enough time
and then
prepare herself and Hanifa.
Hanifa, prepare yourself as well. I think yeah, Nadifa, if you can tell us a little bit about yourself. I know you're studying clinical applied biomedical science at UMass. Maybe talk about your experience in high school when you are how did you prepare yourself for the applications, and yeah, or how's your experience so far?
Hi, my name is Nadifa. I'm first year in university and I'm majoring in applied biomedical sciences with a concentration in public health, and I'm on my pre-med track. My experience so far, it's going good. It's a bit different from high school, but yeah, it's been tough like transitioning, but getting into the hang of it a little bit. And for preparation in high school, what like for college, what I did was I took like a couple AP classes and extracurricular. I was like volunteering and like going to events to help out and things of that nature. And I also did my SATs. I didn't submit my scores even though because they weren't that good, but I did do that. And I also like applied to like a bunch of schools within the area within like Boston. So I applied to Northeastern, Boston University, Boston College, Tufts University, and schools like that. Um,
So you wanted to stay local.
Yeah, I wanted to stay local
Mhm.
because it's like easier, and so I wouldn't have to pay extra for dorming or whatever.
Get it.
I really wanted to go to there's a school called MSPHS, which is in Boston,
Mhm.
but it was too expensive, so I couldn't go. They have like really good science programs there, but it was out of the budget. So
Yeah, I know that is just on the Huntington Avenue over there next to this, and I know a few people that have applied there, and that's one of the things that we try to cover in this session is that some of these schools that are really top schools, but they don't have financial aid. So that those are the things that as you're going through the process you have to consider, because I mean, even myself, I got into some of these top schools, but I didn't have the financial uh, um, uh, aid to go into those schools. So yeah, it's so how regarding UMass right now, so what's the financial situation over there? Is it that are you paying any school fees, or you're fully covered? And any advice on how you're able to do that?
so for UMass Lowell, what I did was I got a scholarship from the school, from my high school that I went to. And on top of that, I also applied for a government scholarship that was for public like universities. And since UMass Lowell is like a public school, I was able to get my financial aid covered for like the first year. And but otherwise, if I didn't have that, I would be paying like $2,000 per year, which is not that bad.
Oh, wow. Oh,
Yeah.
wow. That's
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah, that is very good here, and I think Hanifa also went through that kind of similar experience, but for her yeah, Spelman. So Hanifa, while you're preparing yourself, thank you so much, Nadifa. Do you have anything?
Deepa, quick question on
Mhm.
your SATs. How was your prep your prep journey? Like, what kind of resources did you use? Were you also using Khan Academy? You said like you did it. Were not really happy with your scores. Like, what kind of things were challenging for you? I don't know. It's just if you reflect back, is there things you could have done differently? What do you think?
So I also did use the Khan Academy tool, and also I had some books that like workbooks to practice through, and
Yep.
they had like tips and a lot of practice problems and like practice tests and stuff like that.
Yep.
But I wish I had started preparing earlier
Mm-hmm.
because I feel like even though a lot of the stuff, um, the like for example in math, a lot of the stuff they didn't teach us in school. So I
Mm-hmm.
wish I had like more time to
Mm-hmm.
prepare.
When did you guys take your SATs in the timeline?
I think I took mine junior year,
Okay.
third year.
Junior, like basically summer before senior year.
Yeah,
Okay, so end of junior year.
yeah.
End of junior year. Okay, all right. So all right. So doing it a little bit earlier, maybe would have given you, maybe you had more practice before that time. And did you guys do like PSAT and all that before?
Yeah, we did. I did PSAT sophomore and junior year.
Good job for Andrea. Okay. All right, good. I'm only saying that to kind of like think about like, how to prep. And again, we are always targeting like, at least now, we're targeting 15-year-olds who hopefully then can take another year to absorb these lessons and then actually apply them, right? So maybe people are hopefully hearing this message when they're 8th graders, 9th graders. So by the time they in 10th grade, they actually have to like, study. It's not like, oh yeah, I've been thinking about studying. Maybe they've even like looked at Khan Academy and see the SAT section. Maybe they poked a little bit about a YouTube video talking about SAT just to kind of like prep them mentally for this exercise. Thank you so much for sharing. Great stuff. And I'm always excited to see pre-meds. So we may have a special session just for pre-meds. And Jamal there is a medical student at UPenn, soon to be finishing his first year. So he will come by quick. So, you know, before you know it, you'll be graduated and you'll be one of our residents. So that's great stuff. Let's give time to Hanifa and then we can open up for Q&A. I think we're kind of getting towards almost the last 30 minutes. Karibu Hanifa for intro, please.
While Hanifa is preparing herself, I think one other thing, Professor Minja, to add is that some of the high schools, they don't cover some of these algebra or calculus courses early. So sometimes it's almost kind of like it's harder for these students to take some of these SATs early. So, but what we are trying to target here is, to communicate here is that if you know the format, you know what's required, then you have an opportunity to take some of those courses that you know you would need them for the standardized tests to improve your chances to increase your scores and things like that. So even myself right now, I'm talking to one of my nephew, he's sophomore. I'm like, yeah, you should take your SATs. And if you don't know your stuff, show up at my house over the weekend and I'll bring you up to speed on some of those stuff. Awesome. So things like that. Awesome. I don't know if Hanifa is still there to give us a few thoughts.
Awesome, great.
Yes, I'm here. My name is Hanifa Maswali. I'm a final year biology and international studies double major at Spelman College with a concentration in cultural studies and women's health. And yeah, I'm here to answer any questions that you may have for me.
We would love to hear your journey studying for the SAT. If you still remember, since it's more than 5 years ago. Yeah. Maybe you've already forgotten it.
Hanifa, she's my niece. Okay. So when she was taking her SAT, I told her to come to my house and we worked on it for a couple nights, and then the next, I don't know if you remember, Hanifa, but yeah, I remember it like yesterday, and then I took her to the station, to the test center. And then she was taking her test. I waited outside and then I grabbed her and then I took her to her mother.
No, Asante's like, no pressure, do not mess up.
So I'm like, hey. And then when I saw the score, I'm like, okay, this was worth it.
Hanifa, do you remember it fondly the same way?
Oh, absolutely, I do. And funnily enough, I was going to bring that up. And something important to note, I had actually gone to Uncle Asanterabi's house to, complete the subject test, the SAT subject test. And in the past, the SAT subject tests were used to sort of complement your SAT scores in specific subject areas. So I had gone to take them in biology and I believe it was math or calculus. I don't remember the exact subject. However, those have been since discontinued by the SAT or by College Board. So that's something to keep in mind for those who may have previously been interested in taking those subject tests. But yes, no, I definitely remember that experience very vividly.
Awesome. And did you supplement that studying, Hanifa, with did you also use Khan Academy? Is that sort of like the accepted sort of like resource these days for studying for the SAT?
So I was fortunately part of a college prep program through in my city. And that program provided test prep specifically for the ACT, but of course, if you kind of know certain skills or if you acquire certain skills in one test, then they'll very much be applicable to another. So I didn't have, specific SAT prep, but I had ACT prep through Kaplan. Now, of course, if you aren't part of like a college prep program, then that's usually paid for. So I definitely always recommend Khan Academy and YouTube specifically for, like the math section. Yeah, but yes.
And do I hear you did both ACT and SAT?
Yes, I did.
Do you recommend that? What's your take on that?
No. I honestly don't necessarily recommend one over the other. Or actually, let me backtrack. I think ACT for those who are extremely confident, they're two different tests. But if you're extremely confident in your science and math abilities, I think that the ACT is more. I think it's a little bit more challenging in that regard. So you have the ability to sort of like showcase your strengths on that test more than you are on the SAT. But yes, yeah.
Okay, no, that's
So
great. That's great. I don't know whether MIT therefore has a preference for ACT versus SAT. Do you feel that way?
Honestly, I don't think so. I had actually a couple peers in my class that had got accepted to MIT, and one of them I'm still close with. If I'm not mistaken, he submitted his SAT scores rather than his ACT scores.
Okay. All right. That's just curious, because sometimes that comes up with our students. Should we study for the SAT, ACT? Should we study for the SAT, both, and all of that? And I think it's just nice to kind of have some of that perspective and so forth. And then lastly, regarding personal statement, do you remember what you wrote about? And then as you are thinking about that, we can begin to take some questions as we begin to wrap up our session. Karibu, Hanifa.
So, and while Hanifa is responding to that, Lila is here. So Lila was part of our panelist, so she can also answer some of the questions that we had for her. Yeah. Hanifa, go ahead, please.
Yeah, so I actually happened to take a look at my personal statement the other day because I was helping someone with therapists. But mine was, it was basically, I was answering a question. It was a bit of a philosophical question. But basically, like, what is, one's purpose in life? And I know it's so it's so like deep, but I was able to sort of utilize my interests in biology and kind of knowing like the mechanics of life from a scientific perspective, as well as my interest in international studies and cultural studies. So getting to know like the more sociological aspects of one's life and kind of utilize, like, using both of those kind of things to answer that question. And but ultimately I said that it was a subjective thing, but that was probably one of my most like discussed things when I was going into interviews. I happened to interview with a couple IVs, as well as even just talking to admissions counselors after the fact. I know I had spoken about it with my Spelman admissions counselors, but yeah, it was the
So Dr. Minja, but before I forget, Hanifa was interviewed at Yale, but it was one of those situations. I think I reached out to you, hey, what's the interview process look like over there? But it was actually maybe last minute or stuff like that. But hey, like we do everything last minute, which is one of the purpose for this session, is to really see how can we prepare the next generation to put together some of these things early.
Well, one of the ways we can do that is really to make sure Hanifa, Christopher, Jamal, and Laila, and Nathifa take on this role, right? So basically, you guys really need to be reaching out to your youngers, right? So if you know, students who are in 8th grade, 9th grade, basically point of this material, point of these sessions. So idea is to demystify these things. Like it shouldn't be somebody's in Tanzania and they're applying for college. They're even heard of like UWC. There's a UWC in Tanzania and Moshi. It's in our country. Like we have a UWC in Tanzania. So it's like, so, but again, the issue is that this information is not publicly shared. So that's really one of the things they were trying to solve. So for example, if people know that, hey, you may have an interview as part of your application process, there are many students or colleagues who have been to these institutions, they can be a resource for it. So let's say you're applying to medical school at UPenn. Now we know Jamal is a medical student at UPenn. So we have a contact there and so forth. So I think that's the important thing that people should realize, and also realize that whatever you're trying to do, other people have done before you. That's another major misconception for our Tanzanian colleagues. When they're applying, they feel like they're the only one, or they're the first one, or whatever. And meanwhile, they're like many people who've done it before you, but maybe haven't gone to your UWC, but they've been to other UWCs like 20, 30 years before you. And more or less it's the same experience. And that can sort of help you, give you a leg up in terms of when you're trying to distinguish yourself, when your personal statement and you're writing something, trying to like say, hey, I really know what UPenn is about. I really know what Georgia Tech is about. Having somebody who's gone there is going to really give you a major sort of leg up. So again, as we
one additional thing from Frank Minja, we touched a little bit about financial aid, and Hanifa has full right. Can you tell us how you were able to do that?
That's an important one.
At Spelman.
Yes, so I was, graciously afforded a full scholarship to Spelman College, and I would definitely attribute that to my GPA in high school as well as my SAT scores. I know like Spelman, they have kind of like a threshold. So if you have a certain GPA and a certain SAT or ACT scores, then you can be considered for the presidential scholarships and other sort of smaller scholarships that they have at the college. So yes, that honestly, like, I know as everyone has mentioned before that, I know there's sort of this narrative that like grades and test scores don't matter, but when it comes to the money, like when it comes to the scholarships, that's what's going to really put you over the edge. Having the higher SAT score, having the higher GPA.
Awesome.
Excellent. So this adds to the list of some of those schools that they have resources. I know we emphasize on top schools, but a lot of these other, not Ivy Leagues only, a lot of these other top schools, they also have monies to support the students. So definitely the things that we talked about here today, they're relevant to really put yourself improve your chances of being successful in getting financial aid. Everything matters. Everything, of course, the academic stuff matter, but these are the things, your writing skills, your extracurricular activities and stuff like that, they also matter. Frank, I know Lila has joined us and she's at work and she just came in to respond
she's
some
able
of
to
the
join in and share a little bit about her SAT and personal statement. I think that'll be phenomenal. Karibu, Lila.
But more importantly, Lila also has she has a full ride at Northeastern. So
that's incredible.
Will be interesting to get her perspective on how she thinks she was able to.
Can give us the secret sauce for that. That'll be excellent.
Thank you so much, Hanifa, for sharing your thoughts. Lila, if you can unmute yourself. Yes.
Hi, everyone. I'm Layla. I am a senior at Northeastern. I graduate this May, inshallah. So I actually, in terms of my resume going into college, I did not take the SAT because I was a part of the 2021 class. Unfortunately, with the pandemic, my GPA was around a 4.1. And I took loads of extracurriculars and AP courses, and that helped with getting into Northeastern. In terms of financial aid, one thing I really cared about when researching schools to apply to was how resourceful they were in terms of financials. And you can look this up. You can see on average how much people at the schools get based off of their need. Some schools even have calculators in which you can put in your information to kind of gauge how much aid you would get before even applying. Northeastern is a 100% need-based school. So based off of the need that FAFSA calculates, they'll pay all of the rest in which you can't afford. And there's many 100% need-based schools throughout the country. It's just a lot of people don't know about them, but Northeastern is one of them. Your academics do help when it comes to financials at Northeastern. We have similar scholarships to what Hanifa mentioned, presidential scholarships, dean scholarships, as well as if you're in your state, it is possible that your private schools in the state may also accept your federal grants that apply to that state. So I'm from Massachusetts and I go to Northeastern and they accept a couple grants that are specific to Massachusetts. So I would look into that as well.
Awesome. That's awesome. Phenomenal stuff. How about, can you reflect back on your personal statement? Do you remember what you kind of like wrote about for your personal statement?
Yeah. So for me, I wrote this personal statement at the height of COVID. And being in quarantine alone with myself, I was thinking a lot about, my personal identities, how I want to grow, what kind of person I want to become. So I thought a lot about the intersectionality of my identities, being African, being Muslim, being Black in America, being a woman, and wanting to pursue medicine. And so my personal statement was really about how I came to love each identity and embrace each identity altogether outwardly. You guys may may relate, but it being in a country away from your parents' people, and trying to navigate that world can be sometimes difficult. So it takes steps to kind of hone in your identity. So I spoke a lot about that, and then also talked about my passion for medicine and wanting to work with non-privileged communities, because I come from one myself, and I've navigated the medical landscape here, and I just wanted to reflect my identities and also want to help those in the future.
Phenomenal stuff, Lila. Excellent stuff. We should chat since you're pre-med. What was recruiting if you want to become a radiologist? So, but in all seriousness, actually, many of you on the call are actually pre-med one way or the other. We have Jamal, who's a medical student. We have Asanta, who's like biomedical engineering, so also sort of in the medical field, and many others on the call. So I really just want to make sure that you guys use us as resources as you are progressing in your career, whether you're applying for MCATs, whether you're trying to decide whether you should still be a pre-med, because some of you start as a pre-med, and by second year, you're having second thoughts about whether you should still continue to be a pre. We should just basically chat to make sure that you have the tools to be successful. And many of the lessons that we will give you are very much the same in terms of maintaining your grades, make sure you have the proper extracurriculars, make sure you have the proper mentorship, make your proper mentors and letters of recommendation. It's the same thing, but now applied towards the medical career and so forth. And we can never really start too early. So I think that's really incredible. And I'm always inspired because the more of you start to come into medicine, some of us can retire. So we can't wait for you to actually join the profession and so on.
The other good part, actually, Professor Minja, we're going to write this for maybe a year or two. We're really looking forward for the next generation to grab this and continue this culture of communicating these things early and help the younger generation to be successful. But before, I know Lila, you're at work. You're probably gonna drop, or she already dropped. Is Lila still here?
She's still there.
So I know you had a deeper personal statement. Maybe something to add. What do you think allowed you to be successful, or enable you to be successful in your application at Northeastern and other schools? Was it your SATs? Was it a combination of your writing? From your standpoint, what do you think was allow you to be successful? Is it early preparation? What is it?
I think using my resources was when I involved myself in some college readiness programs at my high school. But I think the main part of my application that really helped me get my acceptances was the vulnerability that I showed within my extracurriculars and my personal statement. One thing I think someone told me, and I took that advice, was don't do things just to do things. When you put your extracurriculars on your application, because the admission officers can see right through that. They see when people just stack stuff on there. But put things that you're passionate about and that you'd be willing to talk about if you were asked to do an interview. As well as the supplemental questions that are put on the application are often thought-provoking, and you really have to think about moments in which one can recall most of the details, as well as something that you're passionate about. So they'll ask about different circumstances you went through in life, and they really care to hear the personal aspect about that, because the number one thing about admission officers, they want to know what kind of student that they're bringing in, the kind of person that they're bringing in, someone that will take the challenge of being accepted into their university and dealing with all those classes and passing eventually.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing that.
Awesome stuff. Awesome stuff. So we haven't had as many questions this time around, which is great. Means hopefully the information is percolating, or everybody here is part of the choir, so already know everything about this information. So as we're wrapping up, maybe our panelists can give us, 1 or 2 minutes of like advising your younger self. So basically advising somebody who's applying for college now or applying for college to enter 2026. Like what things would you want to, give him some advice on? So then we can wrap up our session. So we're doing really good on time. And I think that would be like a good way to kind of round this up. I think we've covered a lot of really good material and a lot of like personal experiences, very pertinent to this. We didn't use too much Swahili, so that's in some ways it's fortunate, some ways it's unfortunate. This is always the challenge in being in a bilingual society. So again, if applying to college, you have to speak English, but sometimes this does block those who are not as fluent in English. So please, apologies for that in advance. But I think the information has been shared widely, and so karibu, tutaanza na Christopher, then we go to Jamal in the same way in which our panelists presented their brief remarks. Maybe they can just come back on and give us 1 to 2 minutes of like, advising your younger self, advising somebody in 9th or 10th grade about this process. I think that's where the comments would be really, really helpful. And again, these comments are going to be on YouTube, so people hopefully can use them as they prepare moving forward. Karibu, Christopher, the floor is yours.
Yeah, so I would say biggest thing is start early. Then on maybe like 3
Let's
things.
be more concrete. Let's be more concrete.
Start early with
start early. Let's say
early.
somebody is in 9th grade.
Yeah.
When should they start?
I mean, it kind of like, yeah, probably 9th grade or like late middle school. Sometimes you have like more decisions on like the types of classes you get to take and the pathway for classes, like when you can be able to take certain types of AP exams. I made those decisions like in 8th grade or a little bit before that. Another big thing is explore and find what you really are interested in. I think I should have done that a lot earlier. And it makes it a little bit easier to figure out like what you want to like study, what you want to do in the future, and can make it easier for you to sell yourself because you have like a bunch of projects or like proof that you actually like are very interested in these key things. Keep studying and joining a bunch of extracurriculars.
Christopher, do you remember back in 8th grade, were there any people who were sort of ahead of you that you could like say, hey man, I think I want to like, follow that. Maybe they're like, a couple of classmates or maybe a few years ahead of you that maybe were role models for you and made it easier for you to visualize and say, hey, I also want to get into like, whatever, computational chemistry, or I also want to do science Olympiad, or I also like, did you have anybody sort of just maybe a year or 2 ahead of you that could sort of help you visualize what you wanted to become?
I had that. Well, I had the drive from an early age. I only really got like a mentor like that in my junior year or junior or sophomore year. He went to Penn, and he helped me like, I guess, with like figuring out some other extracurriculars I could add, which gave me more leadership experience. Not only did I do like he put me onto the computational chemistry research. I was also in Science Olympiad and became a secretary, leadership position within that. He also put me onto Swanee Youth Leaders, which is an organization I applied to. Those were like really big and helpful.
Awesome, that's great. Is he of Tanzanian origin or what's his background? Just curious.
Bangladeshi,
excellent, even better. Yeah, right. So I think all the only reason I'm sort of harping on that is sometimes it's easier for our students to have somebody who's just a few years ahead of them, right? Because when they look at Asante, they're like, oh my God, that's like 30 years from now. I'm never gonna get there, right? But if you at least see somebody who's 3 to 4 years ahead of you, it's like, oh, you know what? I can sort of, do that. And that's like possible. So it kind of like helps people to kind of stay focused and also stay in the realm of like possibility, which is really this whole thing. Like, you want to imagine big things, but also like, it's important that those things are like, doable and achievable, and so that way it kind of maintains the drive and so forth. So great comments, Christopher. Thank you so much for being on the call. I look forward to, like, you know, chatting some more, and also recruiting you to our side of the world. So, you know, stay tuned, man.
For sure.
Jamal, you're on next.
Okay, I think just to add on, like, maybe two things. The first is when you're like you have to do your own research, and in doing that you're going to find so many resources, and you're going to find like a lot of things that are going to tell you like this is what a successful applicant looks like, and they're partially light, but I also want to encourage everyone to just lean into who you are as an individual, like lean into your own perspective, because that's what sets you apart, and that's what's going to make you stand out as well. Obviously, you do have to, like, there are like some cookie cutter things, like you have to have a good GPA, you have to have like a good SAT, but also just lean into your individuality, like your personal story. Like that's what's gonna make you stand out of all those other applicants who are like competing for the same spot. And I think as Tanzanians, and just like as someone like trying to like seek education in the US, like just being from Tanzania, you have like a unique perspective that a lot of
Absolutely.
students that are applying don't have. So just try to think of how you can put that in your application and how you can weave that in to make you stand out. Second thing, I would encourage you to, you have to find a balance between being realistic and also dreaming big. Like one thing I always truly believe in is like, don't close doors on yourself. Like don't, like, if they're gonna reject you, let them reject you. Don't reject yourself before like they even see your application. So if it's a school that you really think that you want to go to, it doesn't matter what they say the acceptance rate is, go for it. But also, on the same note, don't let your application be just like all the top 10 schools in the US and nothing else. Like you kind of have to have like realistic choices in there as well, just in case. Like you never know. Like this whole application process is just, you never know. So kind of find a balance between those two, like dream big, but also kind of be realistic in your choices.
Absolutely. And somebody else also mentioned here, which is another major misconception. They're like, oh, I don't want to tell people about this process because it's going to decrease my chances, right? Like, there's like, oh, if so-and-so, like, you know, if Frank's kid gets this, therefore my kid is not going to get it. So I'm not going to like tell him or whatever. It doesn't work that way, right? This is a very much a Tanzanian sort of like thing, and unfortunately, where we kind of hide this information. It becomes like, you know, like a well-kept secret, because we think by allowing more Tanzanians to hear about it is diminishing our chance. It's like the lottery. It's not really like that, right? As a matter of fact, more Tanzanians will know about this information actually increases our profile, because we actually end up having more students from Tanzania, which actually makes it easier from students from Tanzania, because if the students from Tanzania come in and they do well, automatically mean for the next 5 years, the students coming from the same school as Jamal are gonna get a leg up, because it's gonna be like, hey, we had a really great experience. So anybody now applying from Feza, Jamal becomes like the reference point, and vice versa. So actually it's the opposite, right? So whenever our students come, and many of them perform very well academically, it helps more Tanzanian students. And I don't know how well better to say this, but I just have to say that again and again, this also happens for the diaspora families. We have Tanzanian diaspora parents who have their students who've gone to Ivy Leagues, but they won't share that information because somehow they think it's going to diminish the chances of like their siblings or whatever getting into the same schools. And you have no control. We said this in our previous like talk. Harvard, MIT, all these Ivy League schools receive enough applications that they can admit 3 to 4 classes of similarly talented students. 3 to 4 classes at any given time, right? So if they, at Emory, they're taking like 1,600, they have a minimum of like, you know, whatever, like, you know, 5,000 students from their pool who would, you would not be able to tell based on GPA, based on academic ability, what the difference is, right? So there's no way you can really sort of control for that. And that's really part of really making this information public. So you don't have to know Frank Minja, you don't have to know Asante Malima, you don't have to know Jamal Magoti, you don't have to be a family friend to have this information. So that way the best students, and any student for that matter, can actually get access to this information. It's a very sort of important point. And again, bahati ya mwenzako silalia mlango wazi. It's like, if somebody is basically luck, they're gonna get it. And there's nothing you can do to prevent it or to increase your chances to get somebody else's luck. All right, enough of my sermon over there. Karibu, I think we were going to, who was next?
Hanifa, I think Hanifa.
Yeah, Nadifa, karibu for your.
Hanifa or Nadifa, any of them.
Yeah.
I can go.
Yeah.
Karibu. Yeah.
So, an advice that I would suggest is find something that you're passionate about at an early age. Like, find something that you're interested in, so like what you'll do, like what your options are going into college, and looking forward into possible career options. So that way, like, okay, so I know I want this. How do I get there? What steps should I take? How should I prepare myself to get to this point? So yeah, that's an advice. And adding on to what everyone else said, prepare early. The earlier, the better.
Nadifa, how did you know you wanted to get into the medical field? Did you have somebody in your family, or like what just briefly, like how are you thinking about that, just to kind of give people ideas?
So both my parents are in the medical field.
Awesome.
I sort of wanted to follow in their footsteps.
Awesome.
And like get a medical degree in the US.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, that's a great reason, and we're here to champion it along.
And also make sure to find resources, because there's a lot of resources. You just have to do research on it. Like, they won't just come to you. And because in high school,
resources, you mean scholarships?
Yeah, and because in high school they don't really like prepare you for college, so you sort of have to do that on your own.
And what were the most helpful resources? You mean like search on the web, but like how did you go around it? How would you advise like an 8th or 9th grader to go around it?
So I was in this program that it's called Bottom Line, and it was a college preparation. And throughout my like junior and senior year, they like walked us through the whole entire college application process. So we did they helped us with our essays, with our recommendation letters, with our FAFSA, like financial aid, and applying to schools and seeing which one would best match your like our grades and stuff like that. So
awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. Start early and keep searching. That's great. Great advice. Thank you so much, Nadifa, for that advice. We have now Hanifa and Laila to close us out, and then over to you, Asante.
Yeah, I honestly, I don't want to sound like a broken record and, that I'm just repeating what everyone had said, but it's very true. I think what everyone has said is very true, particularly charting your course very early. So kind of knowing what you want to do and preparing, whether that be academically and, choosing certain courses. I think someone had mentioned before, like in middle school, so as early as middle school, that, you're able to kind of determine what courses you're going to take in high school. Like I had to take an entrance exam for math, which basically taking that entrance exam, allowed me to take a more advanced course my freshman year of high school, which allowed me to finish AP Calculus BC, so the final course in, calculus in the AP system by my senior year. So, starting early and kind of preparing yourself academically in that regard is very important, but also being authentic to yourself. And again, that was something that's mentioned, being authentic to yourself and letting your interests shine. I've always had an interest in medicine and biology. However, I've also always been like a history nerd and been interested in, how different cultures exist in this world. And then just also having some like different passions in the arts, having the ability to sort of combine all of my interests, whether it be, personal or more academic, has really kind of afforded me a unique perspective, not only going into college and applying to college, but also today in, applying to jobs or preparing for med school down the line. So yes, definitely what everyone has said. And
awesome. Great stuff, Hanifa. Thank you so much for that insight, and I could not agree with you more. And congratulations for completing the AP series. Before, did that allow you to skip some of your semesters at Spelman?
So yes. So I my AP score had allowed me to skip one of the math portions in the biology sequence at Spelman. That's actually something that is important to note for those who are interested in taking AP courses. Be very careful, and I'm surprised I hadn't mentioned it early. Be very careful in which ones you select, because some of those AP courses won't actually count towards your degree. And that's because certain schools may require you to, if it's, say you're taking AP biology and you're a bio major, that course might not necessarily be equivalent to any biology course in that sequence. So you might be just taking that course to prepare you, which was basically my case. I think taking those AP courses very much prepared me academically. However, in terms of them qualifying for academic credit, that's not always the case. Again, I was thankful that, my AP calculus credits counted, my AP statistics credits counted, but that isn't the case for any subject. So be sure to look at the university's requirements for AP credit, and then the specific, major that you want to go into in selecting certain AP courses.
Awesome. Great stuff. Now we have Lila, and then we go to Asante.
So one thing I do want to just quickly add to the AP conversation, as well, is if you're pre-med, you're certain you're gonna go down the pre-med route, I'd also even go as far as to look at whether the med schools would accept you using your AP credits in college to kind of substitute those credits. Sometimes med schools don't like that very much. They would prefer you take the college course in college. But what I wanted to say, or what advice I would give to a 9th or 10th grade student, is to really focus on your passions for a future career, any extracurriculars you want to involve yourself in high school, any passions that you would want to discuss on your application, and then also think about those AP and IB courses that you would want to take to better suit you up for the major you want to pursue. And then lastly, I would advise that you seek advice from someone who's in the position you want to be in. So when I was going through my application process, I talked through it with a senior in college at a local university who had been accepted into med school. So she was going on to the position exactly where I wanted to be. And she gave me all the tools that I needed to apply and eventually get in. And if you're pre-med, I wish I could go back and tell myself to look at the medical process. But if you're pre-med right now, I would suggest you understand what steps you need to take in each year of your undergrad, and then even post-grad, all of those things. A lot of those things I came to learn when I entered college and met with my pre-med advisor, but it would definitely be beneficial to learn that in 9th or 10th grade, as early as that, just so that you can better set yourself up to get the hours that you need to apply to med school. Getting into med school is getting harder and harder every year. So the earlier you start, the better.
That's awesome. Phenomenal. So am I hearing that you're already accepted to medical school? So you're going to be joining us soon?
No, not yet. I'm going to take a gap year and then I'll apply for the MD PhD program.
Fantastic. Congratulations, man. Whenever you're ready, let us know, man.
Yeah,
awesome.
I think I don't know if we have time for questions, but I think there's one thing that we have been discussing, Frank, for a while about student taking double majors versus focusing on a single major and trying to increase their GPA, especially for students who are trying to do pre-med, they're in pre-med programs or trying to go to grad school. What is your take on that in terms of like taking double majors or focus on a single major, as far, for example, in this case, pre-med, if you're planning to go to med school, so that you increase your GPA, increase your chances of getting into those schools? What is your take on that? Or is it something that is personal?
It's a little bit tricky. So again, similar to high school, but in college even more so, right? So you want to pursue things that you're passionate about. And the idea there is, if you're passionate about both majors, like a double major, then if you're passionate, then you stand a good chance of doing well. And that's the idea. And that's why, like for medical school, you can do English and still go to medical school, right? So it's not really like TZ unless you have to do physics, chemistry, and biology to go to medical school. Where here you have a lot more leeway, basically, so long as you demonstrate excellence. And that is the key component of all of these, both high school and college and medical school and whatnot. So long as you can demonstrate excellence, then that shows us you have the academic aptitude, you have the discipline, you have the go through, you're gonna follow through and whatnot. And those are the things that people look to, and less so the GPA. So you shouldn't really doing things that just quote unquote boost your GPA, because then that hurts you in other ways. Because you don't really like biology, but you feel like, well, I'm still gonna do it just because it's gonna boost my GPA. Then that's limiting your growth, and over time that's gonna show in your progression, because things that you don't enjoy, you're not gonna put in the extra hours, you're not gonna go to like extra office hours, you're not gonna do the things that are gonna get you to like A and A plus. You're gonna do things that sort of like, I get a B and I'm comfortable, but to do things that are gonna get you like over the hump, usually it's easier if you're sort of already kind of like passionate about it. I think we're starting to lose some folks. People need to like switch to other things that are happening this Saturday, but this was a really fascinating session, and we can see how busy our panelists are, because they got meetings, they got like jobs, they got stuff to go to, and that's what you need to kind of look forward to. But really, I'm hoping that this will be a great resource for any Tanzanian student who's hopefully wrapping up their application for this year, and for those who are prepping to apply to enter college in 2026. That's really the class that we are sort of aiming this towards. So hopefully, again, as you guys are preparing your applications, both the college applications 101 and this 201/301 will put you really in good stead. We had many folks here who are hearing about the United World College. I think that's a really fantastic opportunity for those on Form 3 or maybe Form 4 or entering Form 4. Actually, if you're entering Form 4 right now, you guys are starting school on Monday. This is like perfect, man. Look at the UWC, because that may be your ticket towards a lot of great things. Many of us benefited from similar opportunities, and I can't really wish anything like less for you guys in terms of getting your high school paid for and your college paid for. And chances are, once you have those two things paid for, everything else is going to get paid for, right? You're going to get your master's, your PhD paid for. So essentially, you get to go to school for 10 years for free. And then, be qualified to do what you already love to do. So again, Asante, I turn it back to you for your final words, and then we can wrap this up. Thank you.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you so much to everybody that joined us on this call today, and more thanks to all our panelists for spending the time. I know some of you were at work, some of you had to stop doing other responsibility to be here with us and share your thoughts. Was all very welcome and super helpful. I was reading some of the charts and seeing the feedback there. Personally, I love doing this, and I know Professor Minja is spending a lot of time to organize these sessions so that we have some of this information out there so people can use this as a reference when they're trying to pursue, whether it's the undergraduate or the graduate. And there will be a graduate session. I don't know if
actually, I will post that. We're gonna have next Saturday around the same time. We will have a session led by Bonnie Kutela, Professor Moni Kutela. He's going to basically be talking about graduate school. And I think we'll have Mariam Zava is going to be on that session. So that's going to be more geared for people who have finished college or finished their first degree and looking for secondary and tertiary degrees. So please stay tuned. We'll post those things on social media and WhatsApp groups. We are challenged in posting Zoom links on social media because that becomes very dangerous for our audience in terms of getting Zoom bombed. So please forgive us for that inconvenience, but please link up one way or the other. I guess you have Asante Malima's LinkedIn. We usually share widely on many of the diaspora WhatsApp groups. So if you know anybody in the diaspora, you ask them, hey, have you seen any flyer around grad school 101 session? Chances are people are gonna basically share it with you and whatnot. So far, we don't have a very good system of sharing this information, at least for the live sessions, but we'll keep working on it, and hopefully we'll come up with a solution.
Yeah. So what I hope is that the next generation, the people like the panelists who joined us here today, will grab the bull by the horn, right? And then maybe in a year or two, they will be leading some of these sessions, but this will continue so that we continue to share this information and people are getting this information early so that they can start their process early. And I hope to see, like in few years, we see more and more Tanzanians, whether coming from Tanzania or they're here in the diaspora, getting into these top schools and do better. So other than that, I think as Professor Minja said, we'll share these slides. Then this is recorded session, so you'll be able to follow up on this if you have questions. The reason I'm sharing this LinkedIn is only that so that we don't field all the questions, right? So what we're trying to do on LinkedIn, we have created a group where we have mentors, so that if people have specific questions about people applying to medical schools, we'll connect them to people who are already in medical schools. People who want to know a little bit more about electrical engineering, system engineering, they can reach out to me and I will link them to people who are already doing that. Computer engineering, we have a bunch of people. Actually, Raja didn't join today, but he goes to Harvard Law, and he was telling me, like, anybody who's interested in applying to law school, he gave me his email. I can link you up. So that's the reason why I'm sharing this LinkedIn email.
That's great.
Connect with me. I will try my best to connect you to the right people. Apply and reach out to these mentors for advice, and I wish you all the best.
Awesome. Thank you. Asante sana Malima. This is really, really great. I really appreciate you. And again, we'll post this on YouTube for everybody to benefit. Please share widely. Again, more Tanzanians will succeed is going to help all of us to succeed. And again, kudos to our Gen Z crew, Christopher, Hanifa, and Nadhifa, and others who are able to join us. We're really excited that you guys are giving back. But that's really the major thanks that you can give, is just to pass on whatever it is that you were able to gain in terms of mentorship and so forth to other people. So it really helps you also as you are mentoring other people, will give you a chance to reflect on your own journey, and chances are it will actually help you as well. So I can't encourage you further to really look back and give back. And so be open to connecting with folks. You know a lot. Again, Crystal, I just graduated. You still know, like, 5-6 years worth of knowledge compared to like an 8th or 9th grader right now. And all that information is extremely valuable. And the sooner they learn about this, the sooner they see you guys as role models, the sooner our community will become even more and more successful as we move forward. Yamani Asanteni, really great connecting with you guys over the weekend. And we will close our session now. Asanteni sana.
Thank you all.
Thank you.